All right, great. Good Lord.
Welcome back to part 2 with the Dean and EJ, the Books Boys.
Woo! Whoa, baby! Exciting stuff.
Los chicos de los libros. So, welcome
back
to welcome back
Fanda
to
Boys.
Part 2 of Books Boys. The Bifanda Boys. PJ's got his Bifanda. There we go. Into the winter
Where's
weather.
Where's your Bifanda? Where's your scarf?
I'm wearing my Books Boys t-shirt. I didn't want to cover it up. I'm sporting. We're both advertising us in different ways.
Different ways. I suppose so. Yeah. Well, anyway,
it's your turn.
Yeah, I was just saying that as I'm constantly reading, asking is given, I then moved on as well to read American-Born Chinese by Jean Luen Yang. And Jean Luen Yang, this is a graphic novel. So this is he's a Taiwanese Chinese author, and really this is just it was kind of given to me to teach with. So I'm here in Dresden again in Germany to cover as a German teacher for a month, and I've just decided, and I've just been asked to stay for another month. And it's got a beautiful library, I have to say, the Dresden International School. And really, most of these books come from that school, and as well as the main city library. So right here are the great books for kids. And this is from the school. And really, I thought it looked nice, first of all. So I just thought, yeah, I'd like to read that myself anyway. But really, the book is it was given for kids for Ukrainian refugee kids. And I was wondering why exactly. But then it made sense, because this is all about, foreign, not foreign, but like people coming from overseas to America. And then really that cultural conflict. So as the title, right, American-Born Chinese. And it starts off with there are 3 stories that intertwine. And the first one is the monkey king or monkey god, and that's just kind of like an ancient Chinese kind of. He's a monkey king, and he can do anything he wants. And he smells a party, and he goes towards the party, and he's just waiting for eternity. It seems probably an eternity. And then he's about to enter, and the guard stops him and says, "You can't enter here." And says, "Excuse me, do you know you're talking to? I am the deity of the Buddha." But he says, "Yeah, you might be of that, but you might know kung fu, whatever. It might be holy, but you are still a monkey." And then everyone at the party inside just laughs and just like pointing at the monkey gods. And you see his face, and all of a sudden it changes, because first it just seems like a very kind of normal standard comic. You see, it's the first frame, I would say, where you just see sadness in the monkey's face. But then immediately it switches to, well, I'm going to kill everyone. And then he just kind of destroys everything. And it's back to that comic kind of nature. And when he just leaves, there's no party, he just destroys everything. But when he goes back to his monkey kingdom, he enters this cave, and he just says something like, and the Monkey King, he never realized that there was a stench. And it's a stench of monkeys. And then the monkey god sat down to contemplate this for a very, very long time. And so already he's like, it's a dissatisfaction with who he is. He's a monkey. He might be God, but he's not human.
Yeah.
It starts off with he's already outside. And immediately moves on to the story of a young boy who grew up in Chinatown in San Francisco, and is then going to a standard San Francisco school. And he's immediately already bullied, and they say, "Oh, you eat dogs," and whatever. All the stereotypes are compounded in this book. And he's actually American. He's born in America, but yeah.
But PJ, what would our good friend Peter Singer say about this speciesism relating to the human gods and the monkey gods?
Well, that's the point. It doesn't matter, and but nevertheless, the monkey feels it's not okay. He feels like he wants to be more, and so does the Chinese boy. And so does the Chinese American boy, you should call it. You see, there is already in the language just the fact that I just said Chinese. He's not really Chinese, and the story is about that all the stereotypes that people sometimes make unconsciously, and he ends up not being happy being of Chinese descent. And the third storyline is then basically a sitcom in the graphic novel, already starting with like ha 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 at the bottom, and it's just basically a standard American boy, blonde, and he's kind of like studying with a girl, and they might be falling in love, and then all of a sudden comes this really stereotypical racist depiction of a Chinese person, like the most racist depiction you have of a Chinese man. And it's called something everyone rubs or something like that. So like you're playing with that they can't pronounce English words, and this is the most stereotypical, really racist, offensive depiction of everything that you could offend a Chinese with, and he does it, the Chinese person, and it's very weird because it's like, what is going on in this novel? Why is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
But the stories intertwine, and the American boy, I do want to give this slight spoiler. It's just a twist is amazing. The American boy might not be a Caucasian blonde person at all. Maybe it is a graphic novel, so are things being hidden away, and really it's about...
This is for children?
This is for teenagers, yeah. It's specifically written for educational purposes, actually. But I think it's for children, disassociative issues, or just dealing with the plain
Bring
issue
back
of
the hungry caterpillar,
Yeah, exactly. This is dark stuff, actually. And honestly, the third section, they all combined right at the end. So I don't want to say anymore, also for time issues. But let's just say that the sitcom part is probably the most philosophical part in the end, even though it may seem. And there's a reason why the Chinese cousin is so stereotypical. Let's just say he's something like let's just say Christmas Carol-esque. He's there to remind the blonde person about who he really is. So it's like the stereotypes he's doing on purpose, sort of. So, and is it really 3 characters is the question as well. You might want to think about that. There might be less than you think. And... It is absolutely, it's beautiful. It's a great book. So American-born Chinese. What about? So that's the darkest one I have here on the list. But nevertheless, kind of like the most relevant one, because he really wrote everything he could for maybe a person not who came from overseas to America to maybe just also accept that he will always be this person. And that he doesn't have to try to be 100%.
Okay.
Whatever this what is America? It's just it is a mixture of cultures. You know what I mean? The Native Americans, they're Americans, but like this kind of idea of like blonde rugby player, that's more like a Polish.
I don't offend the Americans by calling American football rugby. It definitely is, but they don't accept that. So,
see, that's another stereotype. So this is, again, like just a book about stereotypes, and really recommend it. It's won a lot of awards, American-born Chinese. They're making it into Netflix.
Playboy Alex to help us with this. He knows a lot about American football, I'm guessing.
The American. Well, I doubt that he does. Yes.
I doubt he does. I very much doubt that he does.
Yeah. Oh, Lord. So what about you? What else did you read? Going back to the old Socrates times.
Yeah, so the next...
Ancient Rome.
And this was not intentional, by the way. I read 5 historical books. The first 3 were by chance, and then I thought, okay, I'll just do 2 more. So the third one is Apuleius, the Golden Ass. This is the only surviving. It's a
I was getting a bit offended. I thought you were offending my golden jumper I just put on there. I thought you were kind of indicating something there. Okay.
This is the Robert Graves translation. Who's he's a known translator. If you read these kind of works, he's quite good.
And who wrote I, Claudius, which probably the first novel, I, Julia, is a reference to the title.
Oh, yeah, the title would be, yeah. So the Golden Ass...
So sorry, can you... Yeah, go ahead.
Also known as the Transformation or Metamorphoses, of Lucius. Now, this is by Lucius Apuleius. So he's writing about a fictional version of himself. This is a contender for the first novel. This is one of the contenders, at least, and it's the only surviving Roman Empire Latin novel, actually, full novel.
Oh my God! I've heard of it, but I didn't know there was a novel. I thought it was a play. Okay.
Now, it is an early novel, which means it's a bit more picaresque, right? So you wonder at times, could this have just been short stories? Is it really what we would call a novel? It's like, well, here's some stories, and then the character goes from one to the next, and you feel like, But anyway, I'll give you an idea of what happens. So we begin with some stuff that's not actually relevant, okay? But we have a story where someone has a dream. And in their dream, I only mention it because who should be attacked and killed in their dream? I think it's a knife in the windpipe or something. Only a certain Socrates. So still in the culture, still in the pop culture, still in the lexicon. And that's really the only reason.
He still is.
Yeah, well, still is today. Yeah. So because that dream relating to Socrates is the first thing we see, I thought I'd mention it, but it's actually not relevant to the story, okay?
Right.
So then we move on. This is the problem, is it is very picaresque, and a lot of the stuff you wonder, is it really all that relevant, So we start with this story of Aristomenes, which is his dream, okay? So we skip through that. Now we're at Milo's house. So this guy's walking around. It is this picaresque idea, but he gets to this house, and let me just see. Yeah, so there's the exhausting sport he gets involved with, which is making love to a beautiful lady. It's very clear that this book was written by a man, and a horny one at that, because there's a lot of ideas of people just. Now this is women just throwing themselves at him. I don't know about Roman society, but that is something that the Greeks really believed in, and you see it in their court speeches and plays and everything. There's a lot of that we've got to keep these women locked up, otherwise they'll be throwing themselves at men left, right, and center. Like they think that women are just insatiable.
Extremely doubt.
So there's a lot of that in this novel. They wish, right? Yeah. So at times it's funny, and at times it's like cringy, and it just depends on the circumstances. So he gets involved with this girl, and they kind of warn him, she says to him, today I might taste like honey, but tomorrow, you might feel me burning at the back of your throat. I'm giving you fair warning. And he says, well, what do I care, you beautiful thing? So, warning aside, he gets involved with this, this creature anyway. And, she climbs into bed, flings her leg over me, and she says she wants to fight me and kill me, and no quarter will be given. And we have our sleepless struggle and the exhilarating, exhausting sport, So that's, again, not actually relevant to the main story, but it's the next thing we see. There's a bit I really, really love called the Festival of Laughter, where they do this whole prank against him. He gets drunk and he beats up an old bag or a bit of felt or something, and he thinks it's people, and they arrest him, and they tell him that it's people that he's killed, and then they realize it's just an old bit of cloth or something, and he goes through like a sham trial and everything, and he's like really worried. At the end of it, they're like, it's just a prank.
Reminds me a bit of Shakespeare. Yeah, it's getting a bit of a Shakespeare vibe here, indeed.
Yeah, I suppose it is in a way, but it's quite funny, and he's very annoyed that they would use him as the butt of their joke, and he takes it really thick, and he's not a good sport, But it turns out that's the tradition in this city is to do the Festival of Laughter once a year and to do a prank on some stranger. So they do it to him. Right. But in the end, he comes around because they make him like honorary, person in the city or whatever, and make him very important. And he says, well, okay, I'll just about accept this prank then, But he doesn't really love the fact that he's been tricked, That doesn't go down too well with him.
Okay. So it doesn't go down like honey, it's stuck in his throat. It's burning his throat, you see.
We're almost 100 pages in before we get to the main story, which is Lucius is transformed, okay? So this lady transforms him into an ass, right? Into a donkey.
Well, Midsummer Night's Dream again. There you go. Yeah. Bit of Shakespeare.
He's transformed into a donkey, and he wasn't supposed to be. Like, the spell goes wrong. I think he's trying to do something else or make someone be in love with him, or I can't remember what he's trying to do, but he ends up being a donkey. And she says, don't worry, all you've got to do is eat some roses and then you'll transform back. And he goes away, and it's like the roses are dying. It's the wrong time of year. And he ends up being a donkey for years. I
love that. I love the concept.
At least for a year at least for a full year until the roses are reborn, I guess. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's funny things where he says the only good thing about me being a donkey was an enlargement of a certain particular body part, So again, we're straight back to that kind of.
But look, it's very positive. Right? He's looking at the bright side.
He's looking on the bright side. But now it turns into an almost Don Quixote type thing where he's going around from like place to
did you
place.
get it? It's very donkey.
He's going around from place to place, like getting beaten and like humiliated because he's a donkey and all this kind of stuff, and being put to hard labor and hard work and fed, sleeping in the straw and fed scraps of food, and he's like still got his human emotions inside, and he gets involved with like a kidnapping, and there's bandits in the cave and everything. It goes all over the place, but in a quite quickly.
That was great though.
It's actually really funny.
I really would like to read that, but that sounds just.
It's less than 300 pages, and the first 100 aren't relevant. And even in the second bit, there's a big story that isn't relevant. So it's only half of the book is the book. So the actual story is about 150 pages. And it happens very quickly then, So he's going from place to place, and some of the things are ridiculous, People still fall in love with him even though he's a donkey. And this woman wants to be his mistress, and she's she arranges this big elaborate thing to throw herself on the donkey, and then they realize
that is a Midsummer Night's Dream.
They realize
Shakespeare must have read it.
He must have. They realize that the donkey can do human things. They make a show of it. Everyone's coming around to watch the donkey eat dinner at the table, and they all watch the donkey make love to this woman. And then they say, well, she's a little bit too middle. She's a little bit too middle class to do it at a public performance. So no
wonder this book isn't famous anymore. They don't allow it in the school. It sounds ridiculous.
Yeah. So they get a slave girl, and they say, your social status is nil anyway, so you can do a public performance, and we'll have everyone gather around and watch you make love to the donkey. It's very bizarre.
This is just what's going on here, Dean? What kind of book is this?
I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
This is more taboo than American Psycho.
It gets a bit crazy, to be honest, and I'm not going to tell you whether he gets fixed or not in the end. That's the secret.
No, I don't.
The only thing I will mention is there's a big Anna Karenina style aside where, while they're in the cave, the woman says, "Did I ever tell you the story about Cupid and Psyche?" Well, here we go. I just tell the story of this beautiful girl, Psyche. She was so beautiful that no one would marry her. So the god Cupid, takes her, and it's weird. He won't let her see him. He's invisible, but he just keeps making love to her anyway. And I was a little bit uncomfortable with that. But then she gets a bit rapey, and then she gets a bit Stockholm syndrome-y, and she falls in love with him anyway. And he's like, no one can ever let your evil sisters.
So let's stop it right there. I think we need to go back to the children's literature now. Well, I think you've gone too much now.
We need to know about Cupid and Psyche real quick. She's got these two evil stepsisters, like Cinderella almost, and they're coming in and they're trying to make Psyche figure out who Cupid is because they want to take Cupid from her and all this kind of stuff. And then she burns Cupid's wing and he gets sad and he leaves her. And then Venus appears, Aphrodite, and she's Cupid's mum. And she's really mean, but there's horrible scenes where they're there's a pregnant lady being flogged, and it's just there's some really
all right, kids books, kids books.
There's some really difficult scenes, but the main story is really funny.
Okay, yeah, it sounds.
PJ,
the language thing. I mean, we need that palate cleanser. We need the cucumber sushi now. The language.
We do.
This book is only allowed to be read. I'm telling you because it's old. It's just an old book. That's why it was allowed to be in school libraries. And it's the most graphic novel we've ever depicted.
It is actually very shocking in time at parts, but the rest of it's funny and it works. I don't know. Look, give us a palate cleanser. Give us some children's literature.
Hey, here's for the cucumber sushi section. Let me tell you about a few of the other books I've read. So I do want to mention these are the books I read, and I did specifically want to talk about why I think children's books why I'm reading children's books. So, as a teacher, I do think that this might seem a bit stereotypical, perhaps. I do think that the value of stories are more relevant now than ever, in these dark times. Rather than focusing on war, I don't really read the newspaper anymore. I used to read the newspaper all the time. But what I'd rather think is better is just to focus on these positive stories where children can benefit, where they can learn to be better human beings.
Okay.
So this is the reason why I am searching for conscious children's books. And really, every book I have read here is conscious, more than others. Some are more. I mean, American-born Chinese is quite dense politically, almost. So I want to talk about the others. I'm just going to mention them all briefly. So that would be Ray by Mariana Koppel, about a light bulb searching a bigger light bulb. Hair Love by Matthew A. Cherry and Vashti Harrison, which is a trend among non-Caucasian authors in America to depict really what it is like to be a Chinese American, an Afro-American, whatever it is, Latin American. And this is one of those books which really is about a child accepting her Afro-like hair. She's got wild hair, it's overplays, and this is just what it is. I mean, these books are really simple. That's why I don't need to talk about it so much. But really, this is another book about acceptance, and she's frustrated, and the dad really wants to help her become friends with it. So Hair Love really, and he wrote himself, the author said he wanted a book as well which depicts a positive family kind of triangle, so where the father is actually supportive of the child rather than just working or just being absent. So this is very specific for the Afro-American community, African-American community. I don't know the right term. That's why these books are so relevant, because it's not really about the terminology, it's the imagery which are above that, and they're trying to teach child something. So really, I love that. Sorry, I just mentioned Ray. I'll go back to Ray by Mariana Koppel, because it's just essentially, and here are the drawings, and all of these next books is really about the illustrations just as much as the text, or even more. And Ray really just is a light bulb who just he loves his little life, and he's happy, content with it. But there's something maybe missing. And then one day, the father and the son take him to a field trip, and he meets the forest and the moon, and he's just like in awe. And the next day he stays up all night, just excited. And he sees the sunrise, and he says, wow, that's the biggest light bulb I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And the book ends with him just smiling, being back in his home, and he's just smiling because he's seen such beauty, kind of carrying the sunlight with him. That's the whole story, but there's no. I thought I'd tell the whole thing this time, because I think that's just
spoiler alert, PJ. Goodness.
Well, yeah, I suppose for the kids, and also Cactus by Yoko Kitami, Hilda and the Troll by Luke Person. These two I really enjoyed as well, because especially I'll talk more about Hilda and the Troll as a series in the next months. It took me a while to find them. I've got them in several languages, so that'll be an interesting kind of episode next month. Cactus by Yoko Kitami is one where I did cry, actually. I'll be honest with you. It's hasn't happened for a while where I could cry.
Wow.
But I thought, this is just a very simple story translated into Spanish. I don't think it's in English, unfortunately, but from Japanese, about a boy who he kind of lives in this very bizarre universe where they're like flying fish and like cacti that like produce caramel sweets and stuff like that. It's very Japanese. I love that. And he just wants to have a cactus. It starts off with, oh, so you're back. It says, yes, I really want the cactus. It kind of starts in the middle, like something happened before that. He obviously met cacti before. And then he just takes care of this cactus as if he were his brother. But the thing is, the story is about kind of like, it's two-sided. It's about giving too much love to someone. It's about not giving right love or not giving space, because the cactus gets sick because he wears like jumper. He travels around with the kid, and it's just getting too much water, too much love, too much baths, and like
baths?
the more yeah, I suppose so, yeah. But he just ends up he has a dream then, and the cactus leaves him in a dream, and he wakes up and the cactus is almost dead. And the end is just like, I'm sorry, cactus, I'll let you go now, bring you back to the garden. And it's but it's so sad though, because it's very much like, because I could really feel that all the people in the world were like, they want to give so much love, but it's also about letting go of your children. It's really like a book more for adults than for children. So kind of like letting go. Don't pamper. Don't give too much. Let go of that love as well. And I thought that was beautiful. Nice. To finish off, I read 4 books by the same author because I thought he was really interesting. So I just read one of the other. And for some reason, almost all of these books are in Spanish. That was just it's just a very interesting Spanish. It was just a very interesting Spanish section in the library of the school. And this is all by Satoshi Kitamura, who's a big fan of now. And the first one is A Boy Wants a Dinosaur, and In the Attic, which was written by the South African author Herwin Oram, but illustrated by Satoshi Kitamura. And the last 2 were written and illustrated by Satoshi Kitamura, Me and My Cat, When Sheep Cannot Sleep, a counting book. And I'll just explain why I love Satoshi Kitamura. Why was this? It was really the illustrations that got me even more than the stories. That's why I was really looking for his books. He's a man who left Japan, was really without any education. He just wanted to draw. And he worked drawing postcards in London for a few years in the 80s until he got his first gig, so to say, with Herwin Oram. And now that became a thing. So I really believed in what he did. And he's got a very unique sort of, again, slightly animated style meeting Western style. It's really kind of in the middle. Like the characters, they always look a bit more Han Chinese or Japanese, and but it's got a particular look. So look up Satoshi Kitamura. Beautiful. But the one I want to talk about is In the Attic, which is maybe the most philosophical of all children's books I read, which is about a boy who's bored with his toys and he just looks in the attic to see what there is. And there's a beautiful passage. I've got this one here, dude. This is it. There's a beautiful, but hold on a second. But there are beautiful illustrations here because he goes into the attic and literally there are windows opening up to different universes. But it's really his mind. So like really, he can open up his. Look at this. This is one of the best. I love this painting. I'm just going to show you now. Did you see here, kind of? And he's like
very nice.
He's opening up windows to like the desert, to like the savannah, to like fields, like kind of Heathcliff kind of look. Oh, there is one where he's like looking at an anglerfish in the depth of the ocean. And really it says here, abrí una ventana que abría otras ventanas. I opened up a window that opened up further windows. And he meets a tiger in the attic. So that's a bit of a reference there. But you know what the twist is? Got to tell this because that's the whole point.
Don't tell us the twist, right?
Well, look, just close your ears for 5 seconds. Just for 5 seconds, not more, listeners, if you don't want to hear this. The twist is there is no attic. The mother at the end asks, but what? There is no attic. And then he says, well, she doesn't know how to get in. And this is the most powerful book probably I've ever read about children's imagination and the power.
Right. For those of you who are no longer listening, you can now start listening again.
You can start listening. So that's what I recommend. And to finalize this, now it's been quite a few books. Just didn't want to spend all the episode. The final book I read was another moving book. This is probably the most unknown though, to be fair. This is Yo Tengo una Casa. This time it's really a Mexican book by Claudia Lignati. And this is I Have a House. And it's just about a house that moves. And it can grow in size, become smaller, or go within, go without. And it's in the most bizarre place. It's a picture book. And really the morale of the story at the end is, well, my house is wherever I go. And I'm just wondering I don't know enough about Mexico, but I'm just wondering what the background is. Is she kind of saying there, which happened to many Mexican citizens in the last few years, especially, that you carry your home within. It's not about a physical place. It's that your home is inside of you. And I thought that was very moving as well. And these are all very simple premises. There's no need to maybe get too much into them, although I could talk about 3 or 4 hours about the themes. But really, these books, I think, are relevant for kids. These are good messages for kids.
Sure.
And for the adults to remind themselves. So, tying in lastly to Christmas, I literally do think that these are great Christmas presents for your kids because it's fun. It really relaxed me. It's been one of the most relaxing reading month, obviously, for me ever. So it's been a delight. I really just enjoyed the power of the imagery and the message behind it. And highly recommend these books for different reasons. Listen back if you want to know which reasons are best. If you're having someone with disassociation, I do recommend American Born Chinese or Hair Love. But if you want to increase the power of imagination, any book by Kitamura.
I like the sound of Hair Love. I like the sound of Hair Love.
Yeah, I knew you like the sound of Hair Love. You can empathize. That's the lightest, but also a purely light book. So definitely, guys, clever children books, and I'll get more into Luke Pearson's Hilda series, which I did not mention on purpose, but I'll explain why that is a great series of books in the next episode.
Back to history?
Back to the dark history, yeah.
You might have heard of this chap, PJ, Alexandre Dumas.
I know a certain Alejandro Dumas, maybe.
This is a book. Dumas. Well, you won't have heard of the book. It's called Acté.
I see. Another kind of strangely translated book into Spanish and back translated into English. Yeah.
This is about, it's about 250 pages. Short enough book, okay? Not great. Bits of it are good. Overall, I don't know. I'll give you a quick couple of minutes rundown on this one, okay?
Yeah,
so we have a girl, Acté. She's a Greek girl in the Roman Empire days, okay? And a chap comes called Lucius. There's games on. There's like poetry competitions, wrestling competitions. And a Roman chap turns up called Lucius. And he wins everything, beats everyone up, does great poetry, plays the lyre beautifully. Just amazing, beautiful man. And she just falls in love, you know. But he's also very, you know, he decides that she's beautiful and he wants her. And he's also not really going to take no for an answer. And he's going to do all these impressive things to win her over. And at one point, they're being attacked by a tiger and he tames the tiger. And the Praetorian Guard come and they think, well, all the guard are coming, you're going to be in trouble. And he just, you know, dismisses the guard. And they're like, who is this guy? Yeah. What's going on? And he starts besmirching all the past emperors. And they're like, you're going to get in trouble. What's going on? And he says, I want you, and I'm going back to Rome, and you're coming with me, and you're my wife, basically. But she...
Now the story sounds good so far, though.
Yeah, the story is good. And she immediately is head over heels in love, and she's like, I can feel it. I belong to Lucius. Like, she just decides I am his already, and that's it. I don't like the idea of, like, this belonging and things like that, but look, it's fine. And he says to her at one point, to the tiger, Phoebe, don't worry, when we get back to Rome, I'll feed you some Christians. I don't know if does that give you a clue? Because they get back...
Yeah. No, again, I mentioned Quo Vadis by Sienkiewicz, a Polish classic, where it's about Romans torturing Christians.
So they get back to Rome, and this chap Lucius, who she's not married, she ends up, I suppose, being more of his mistress. But this chap Lucius that she belongs to is the Emperor Nero.
Oh, mercy! Exactly. What is Quo Vadis? That's about the Emperor Nero.
Yeah, and he's the one who used to, you know, put Christians on stakes outside of his house and have them all burnt in rows and that kind of thing.
It's depicted in Quo Vadis in great detail. Yeah, it's great.
And she meets his mother Agrippina. And she befriends her, and she actually asks the mother to help her, but Nero's actually trying to kill his mother. But Nero's very sweet with her. And then there's a slave who's an interesting story. At one point, Nero's in love with the slave and marrying her, which is a bit against the social norm. But then the slave plays two roles, a male role and a female role, and just like changes dress. And it's an interesting sort of thing to happen at that time.
Yeah.
But we do feel a lot for this girl. Here's the problem. She disappears 3/4 of the way through the novel. So this novel also, at times, just turns into Wikipedia articles about Rome. He's so faithful to the history. So that's where it goes downhill. And she's not even in the last quarter because it's just a summary of the Roman Empire, you know? And at one point, she meets the Apostle Paul, and he rescues her.
Right.
Paul, who's a very important figure in the formation of the religion of Christianity. And he says, I'm an apostle. I'm called Paul. You don't know about Jesus? Well, here we go. And then just like 50 pages of like summarizing the Gospels,
Wow.
So the Anachreta method is being used.
Which again, because I think of Quo Vadis, Quo Vadis does a good job in not doing the Anachreta methods. So it's a great book for that. If you're interested in Nero's time and the conflict, Christianity is struggling at that time.
And the poor girl is horrified when she, sees these like parties and orgies and all the stuff that Nero is putting on in his house. And she's blushing and she runs away and tries to flee because she just wanted to marry a sweet man who knew how to wrestle and say poems. This isn't what she was looking for. So it's very interesting. It's a fun read. I just kind of wish that maybe just skip the ending, just once she disappears, just skip the rest because nothing really happens in the last sort of quarter of the book.
If I can mention the philosophy of Abraham again, that's a very important part of the book I forgot to mention. You kind of attract what you focus on. It's maybe not relevant to the book, but I'm just saying like the fact that she attracted this into her life was because she focused on it. It's just something to be mindful about. If you focus too much on negative things do appear into your life. If you read about the war, you will focus on war and it will get into your head, that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, I just thought about that.
And we meet, we see they talk about, he's an apostle the same as a narrator. She thinks that Paul is, like Demosthenes and the Greek chaps. We also, they talk about Herod and Pontius Pilate and we get into the history and things like that. And I'm not a big fan of, Paul kind of says, I'm not here to, deal with slaves. I'm here to free people. And well, I could argue whether that's true or not. But look, we don't need to kind of get into the religion side of things. The story is good. I just wish that it stayed a story and didn't become a Wikipedia article.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Shall I cover my last book?
Go ahead.
You may have heard of this. This is an abridged version of Sir Thomas Malory's Tales of King Arthur, the original book, Le Morte d'Arthur, the Death of Arthur. This is an abridged version, and Michael Senior is the name of the chap who edited it. Look, I'm not going to spend long on this. This was incredibly boring. Oh, no. I thought it was going to be thrilling. I was very disappointed.
Oh, no. Sorry to hear that.
We skip, I don't know if this is just the way he's abridged it. All the famous bits are done very quickly. So like Arthur becoming king, the lady in the lake, the sword in the stone, all this kind of stuff, meeting Lancelot, all very, very brief in a very short space of book. And then we spend a massive section of book looking at Lancelot and Tristram. I'd never even heard of Tristram. So we spent a lot of time looking at the adventures of this one irrelevant knight, and then it's not even relevant to the story, and then we just go back to Lancelot at the end, and we have a big section on the Holy Grail. We have Lancelot and Elaine, who's a girl that he fell in love with, or well, she loved him. I think he didn't really love her. He loved Guinevere, who was actually Arthur's husband. Who's just walked into the room is Dark Place Robert, who's actually in the building with me, but I think he's very busy working over there. He's not going to come and say hello. Is he going to come and say hello?
Yes, I'll come say hello.
We've got Dark Place Robert.
Oh, look.
Hello, how's everybody getting on?
Not too bad, not too shabby. How about yourself?
You also didn't like King Arthur's book, right? You said it was boring?
No, that was you.
Oh, that was me. Okay. I thought you agreed. I was talking to him earlier. You seemed to agree.
Did you read it yourself? Did you read it yourself?
Of falconry. That's about the height of it.
The pictures are good.
You just felt the boredom. The pictures are good.
It's a very boring book. The section of the Holy Grail is really long. Interesting. I learned something that I didn't learn from the Monty Python movies. Sir Galahad was not another knight, but actually Lancelot's son in these. So he grows up to be a knight, but he's Lancelot's son. He's not the same age. I'm not going to get into this because I think everybody knows about the sword and the stone, and they know about Arthur. I don't remember a dragon in this book. I always thought that Arthur fought a dragon at one point. Maybe I made that up. I don't know.
I think so, to make it more interesting.
Yeah, the main bits are the search for the Grail and Tristram. The ever popular Tristram is takes up about a third of this book.
Big on Instagram right now, right? I mean,
Lancelot appears more than Arthur does. It's kind of weird. I don't know why Arthur's not that important. But it's written in Middle English as well, so it's kind of difficult to get through, and it's just boring, to be honest. But the pictures are lovely. Colorful pictures of all these medieval scenes. I'll just show you an example there. We get all this kind of thing just peppered throughout the book. So if you want to,
you're tying it very neatly to the children's book section again now.
Yeah, I would recommend people look at the pictures and maybe just like go watch a movie about King Arthur or something, because the books is very cool. Go watch Monty Python.
Nice. Well, very nice. I think that's about wraps it up for this month.
That's basically all that we have read, indeed. So I'm just going to see what song we're going to end with. Oh, hold on a second now. PJ, the phone is ringing again. Bear with me. I'm just going to pop over and see who's on the line here.
Who's that?
Hey, you're through the Books Boys. You've got Dean on the line. Who's calling?
Hello, Dean. It's Lindsay.
Hey, Lindsay. How's it going?
I'm doing very well today. How are you?
I am good. So you wouldn't be Lindsay Sealey, author of Made for More, would you? Which I conveniently have beside me here.
That's me. Lindsay Sealey, Made for More, yeah.
Awesome. I read this last month, and we talked a little bit about it on the show, but I'm glad that you've called in because we can go a little bit more in depth on this one.
I'd love that.
I suppose I want to ask you first of all, because like we interview a lot of people who maybe it's like their debut novel and this kind of thing, but this is more of a help book. But you've written loads. This is like nowhere near your debut. So how many have you written, first of all?
Well, I've written 2 other ones before Made for More. I wrote Growing Strong Girls, which was really a parenting resource for parents of pretty young girls, preteens, we call them. So say 8 to 13. And then I followed that with Rooted, Resilient, and Ready. So still for parents, and now supporting teens who can be a little bit trickier than the little girls. And obviously there's more complex and complicated issues. And then I decided to kind of keep going with the ages and stages and to write something that was really, yes, for parents, but this one is a little bit different because it's actually for young women. Like my hope is that young women, or less than young, like a little bit older women too, are reading it and taking from it. Instead of having it be a parent resource, it's now a young person resource.
Right. Yeah. So do you think, I guess you've got Brave New Girls and you've got this kind of mission, I suppose. Do you think that, putting it out there for the young people as well as or instead of the parents, does that better help you to achieve your goals, I guess?
Well, I just think, like, when I started Bold New Girls, I had come from a job which was really like, I felt like it was 9 to 5 and really in a box, and there's lots of rules and lots of bureaucracy. And I think leaving that job and really thinking about what's next and my dreams and creating the company that I really wanted to, which is a company that empowers girls, young women, through education and through the empowerment tools like personal growth and development. I really was intentional about not having limits or limitations. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't want to work the 9 to 5. I didn't want to work in an office. I didn't want to have the same day, oh my gosh, over and over again. So really, like, I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew I had, definitely passion, interest, and experience in working with younger girls, say between 10 to 15. But then I started to get the really little girls. And then I started to get older girls and older women and parents and teachers in schools and also boys, like younger boys, teen boys, young adults at the college I work with. And so I really decided, like, yes, I guess the face of my company is Bold New Girls, and that's, great for marketing. But I added Brave New Boys, and I just decided, like, I don't care who needs my help. If you need my help, I am more than happy to show up for you. Mm-hmm. And that's how it became. So pretty fluid and pretty flexible.
But it's nice that it's flexible. It's nice that it's kind of expanded or grown, and you can help more people. So let me make sure I get it right the right way around. We got Bold New Girls and Brave New Boys, yeah?
That's correct.
Cool.
You got it. Yeah.
And I mean, are you doing all of this yourself, or what kind of like support have you got in that?
Well, I do have a partner he does most of Brave New Boys. But
Okay.
what's interesting is that there's a lot of clients that we share. And I think it's actually really great that we came to the realization, we live in a society that's very black and white. And it's like, but maybe it's not. Like, little boys need both like feminine influence and masculine influence. And same with girls. And so where we can, we do share our clients. Just it depends on, what their needs are and what they're comfortable with, what they're looking for. But yeah, I do share, and I'm also, yeah, we're just really aware of inclusivity, and that we have different strengths in different areas of growth, and sometimes the combination is magic.
Nice, good. Hit them with a combination. I really think that a lot of guys could use more feminine influence. That's something like just in my day-to-day life, it's something I'm always kind of spouting. Like, we need more feminine influence for men. So that's really good that you are kind of trying to combine the approaches there. So I had I'm going through the book, and I want to just kind of mention 2 or 3 little things that I really like. So one of the main features of it is these more or less lists, right? So just as an example here, more playfulness, more creativity, more time in nature. That's one of my favorites. And then we've got like less sadness, less pain, less fear. So I'm reading through this, and I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, yeah, like this seems reasonable. And it seems almost obvious, but then I'm thinking, hold on, not even how much time in my day, how many days in the week do I stop to actually deliberately do this, So it's easy saying, yeah, you should have less fear and pain. It's like, yeah, that seems obvious, but am I actually taking steps to do that? Or, I like time in nature and creativity. Am I actually taking steps to like increase the amount of creativity that I'm doing, or playfulness, or connections with other people? So I stopped and kind of looked at it, and I thought, yeah, my first glance, was like, yeah, this is cool. I'm doing that. And then my second thought was, am I though? Like, do I need to put some work into this? So it kind of made me think, which I liked. And, time in nature is a great one. It's a little bit tricky in the winter. It's very cold in Ireland, but I do love it in the summer, just going for walks. Last summer, I took 6 weeks off work, and I went every single day for walks in forest parks, hikes, small mountains and hills, just around lakes, everywhere. And time in nature, I think, is really, really great just for your mental health and everything. But I wanted to ask you, do you think, because you got the different age ranges that you're targeting, do you think that Gen Z, the kind of the youth of today, are facing different challenges than like previous generations? And if so, like what do you think makes it different? Like, what can we do to help them that would be different from like, ourselves and millennials and Gen X's and things?
Yeah, 100%. So, first of all, I'm very happy that you spent time in nature, because if you're like me,
it's very
restoring and very, it brings a perspective that sometimes we miss, or we just get too in our heads, in our busyness, and in our to-dos. So I'm really happy for you. Do I feel, yes, I think every generation has its challenges to contend with, and every generation is different. So the world changes, and we all change how we're navigating the world. But I do feel like huge empathy for this generation, for Gen Zers, because I think the big difference is that we all have to navigate and really try to deal with screens, devices, and social media. And that is brand new, just the technology age, right? And with that comes the speed with which we get information, the access, basically I tell girls, like, there is no stop. It's 24/7. It's really hard to say, well, I'm not going to look at my phone, but everything's beeping and buzzing and blinking and notifications. And it's really hard. And when we stay away from it, we feel like we're missing out, or we're not going to be informed enough, or whatever. So I just feel like we're all trying to figure out, how do we do this? Like, how do we find health, happiness, and balance, even though the world is like so busy, so stimulating. There's so many choices. There's like, I feel like the girls or the young women I work with have these boulders on their shoulders, and they're like, it's too much. I can't deal with it. There's just so many expectations, so many pressures to prove themselves. There's so much going on. And it's like, I don't feel like any other generation has had the intensity that we have, or the fact like we're all living, but now we're living like on a stage, like, you know, under a magnifying glass. Like it's different. And yeah, we have some control of what we put out there, but I think that alone is just, it's hard. And I don't think anyone's really figured it out. We're all doing the best we can, but I don't know if I can like reduce all that down to like, well, just do this, Dean, and you'll be fine.
I like that you said we're all living on a stage, because that feels like I've never sort of heard someone put it in those words, but it immediately feels like perfect. Like, yeah, that is exactly what we are doing, like with all the, you know, Instagram and TikTok and everything. It's like all of your life. It's like making a reality show 24/7. And I worry because like millennials have that too, but they can just about remember when it wasn't like that. And I worry for Gen Z because they're like, this is normal.
This is what I was born with, a phone in my hand. That's right. We have the contrast. And I try to bring those stories to the people that I work with and just say, look, there was a time where I had to deal with tough stuff, but I didn't have it, you know, someone posting about it or being mean online or bullying me about it. But I think that maybe back to your more or less ideas, like, or what you said at the beginning of this question, is that maybe that is it. Like, if I could simplify it, it's like, we know that there's a lot going on, and so can we live with intention? And I think a lot of our intentions are made, this is personal experience, but I will offer this, is they're made because we feel like something's wrong. Like, I'm too stressed, I'm too sad, I feel too busy, I can't do today. Like, when I get to those moments, and when, you know, the young women I work with get to, like, I don't want to call it rock bottom, but just difficulty and just challenges, that's when we're really like forced to change. Like, I'm sick of being this way, I'm sick of feeling like that, like I need to do something different. And that's where it becomes beautiful, I call it. Like, that's empowerment. Like, okay, you're not happy with being too busy, what do you need to have less of? Maybe less time on your phone, maybe less Netflix, maybe a few less friends that really aren't fulfilling to you anymore. Like, you are the decider. And in that way, this book is really personal and it's really customized, because I might not have that same problem. I love being busy. And like, for the most part, that I thrive in busyness, but that's not my problem. My problem might be sadness or depression or whatever it is I'm going through. But I think it's when we hit those stuck points where we're like, I'm not happy here, I don't want to be here, what do I need to do to change? And then, like you said, you have this idea, well, I want to spend more time in nature. Well, how are you going to do that? What does that look like on your schedule? Like, where are you going to do it? What does that mean? For how long? Is it solo or with friends? Like, you are the decider of this stuff, and then go and do it. Hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, I think you need to get a little bit more into specifics. And I like that there is that flexibility. And, in the book, it's not just kind of saying everyone should immediately spend more time in nature and get off your phone. It's like, well, how does that, as you say, like, how does it actually fit your schedule? And also, is that what you need? Like, will that actually help you? Because we're all different. So I like that there is that little bit of personalization, like you can kind of tweak it to what actually works for you. And I think that's what makes it really great, Some of the other things I like. So, I mean, this particular book is aimed at females, but I'm reading it and I was really excited then to see that you had Brave New Boys as well, because I'm reading it and I'm thinking, kind of feel like a lot of this also applies to me as a guy. Like, I'm taking a lot out of it as well. And a couple of things that I love are the do, delete, and delegate. So it's kind of, well, I don't know, I'm telling you, but just to tell the listeners, it's kind of like, what do you need to do now to kind of prioritize it? What can be delegated to someone else? It's almost a management style, and what can you delete? Like, you don't really need to do this, or you don't really need to do it right now. And it's something that I've kind of started doing now over the last few weeks, just in my own life. Like, how can I get my schedule to make more sense? Because I'm one of those people that's like, okay, let's try to cram 15 hours of activities into like a 6-hour period, so now
me
it's
too.
Wow. So now I'm trying to like figure out, okay, do all these things need to be done and in what order, and then we've also got a little timeline, which I think is handy, like not like a daily timeline, but you include almost a yearly kind of like which priorities need to be done early in the year. Maybe let's review around set yourself goals over the year and then review like at the midpoint, like June or July, and kind of see how you're getting on. And that's also something that I think is really, really handy. And I'm going to maybe make that my New Year's resolution when we get to January, to be like, okay, what do I actually want to get done? And then halfway through the year, like, okay, don't beat myself up over it, but let's tweak the priorities a little bit and see how we can get on the second half of the year. So I like that.
Can I speak to the timeline? Because you just made me think of something. I think that's very popular that we say, like, oh, okay, I'll wait till January. Or for me, it's often like the beginning of the school year. And then lately I've been thinking like, no, I think if we have this idea of like goals on any day, we should actually start that day.
Just start that day, yeah.
So I'm going to give you homework, Dean. I'm
going
to create the timeline. So your timeline isn't going to start in January. It's going to start in November or December, and you're going to draw it, and you can just obviously draw it until, October of next year. But it's like, I think that that's something that's really important is like, I like to ask the question, like, why wait? So if you have the idea, and sometimes, the motivation, excitement, enthusiasm, go for it, because in the waiting, sometimes it's forgotten, and sometimes, like you said, other things become priority. But I think having a sense of both, like where we've been, I like to go backwards first, and where we're going actually is pretty important for our day-to-day. So then when we link it back to the 3Ds, that really came from my very high moments of stress. I think the highest stress I felt is in creating Growing Strong Girls, because I was a new author and I was scared and I was still doing my job and my life, and I like to keep busy with all the other things. But I remember complaining, we'll say, to my partner, and he's like, just go back to your calendar. And I was like, what? That's like the worst advice ever. When you're stressed, you want someone to like hug you and be like, it's okay, you're amazing. But he's very logical. And I was like, what the heck? Go back to my calendar. So I had to really wrestle with what he was saying. But he was saying basically, you're in charge.
Yeah.
So today, if you're feeling too stressed, that's a day where you delete. Tomorrow, if you're feeling a bit better, maybe you do some jobs, but you can offload, you can delegate some people to do that. Maybe you're taking on too much and you're not realizing like, that isn't actually your job, or that's not your expertise. And then there are days where you just need to roll up your sleeves and do the work. Like stop the planning, stop the thinking, just do it. And all of these feel good, because you're the decider and you're in charge and you're managing your stress, and you're also really prioritizing what is most important for today. There's no such thing as multiple priorities in a day. The word priority means one.
It's one thing, yeah.
You can pick one, or in my case, because I do have many priorities. So I'm like, how do I make this like little, piece of wisdom true for me? But I can have priorities, but it's one priority at a time.
Sure.
So today, my priority, this conversation. And then after this conversation, I'll go on to my next priority. But if this conversation took all day, then that priority, a second priority, just gets bumped to tomorrow. But it's really, to me, I like to approach it with like a playfulness and a creativity and a flexibility. Like, I do my timeline, and of course that can change, but the goals are there. And then I work backwards. How am I going to reach those goals? And what does that mean for each day? And I just believe that that's where, we get done what we really want to do, other than, or otherwise we procrastinate and stuff just doesn't get done. We're just too busy with the other stuff. So.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. I was frantically flicking through the book there so I could get the names right for the last thing I wanted to say that I really liked, which is the triple time motivators. So the fast 15, the half hour hustle, and the power hour. I love those because, well, they sound nice because they got alliteration, but no, I also like them because it's like, oh, okay, try to figure out. So you put, for example, catching up on the news, that can be done in 15 minutes. Maybe your laundry or cleaning your car is half an hour. Maybe exercising or, reading, preparing for a project, you need the power hour. So I kind of like that idea of just like focusing down like your different tasks as well. Like not necessarily just prioritizing them in order, but also like how long do they actually need? I mean, like there's just a solid hour on like preparing this project and we'll just do it, And then it's like, okay. And then this other thing, like that only needs half an hour, and just, but kind of being focused on it and doing it and not just like messing around, I like that.
Well, it's because I think our brains work really well with like order, organization, structure, patterns, predictability, like all that stuff. Our brains are like, hey, like I want like a routine. And so one of the things that helped me, especially for the things I do not like to do, like cleaning the house, is seeing that there's a beginning and an end. Because if you said just clean your house, to me, that's like the abyss, and that could be forever. And who's going to start doing something that's going to take forever and is also like not enjoyable, right? So I play little games with myself and I say, okay, I'll just, turn on the timer for an hour and flip it. Instead of I have to clean for an hour, it's more like how much cleaning can I get done in half an hour? And I think the brain does really well. Like once that timer goes off, I'm free. And usually I just keep going because then I'm into it. But I think it's just a way to like get myself to do things that I don't necessarily want to do. And I think it's nice to have the end point. So it's not forever. Our brain does really well in those like structures and details. And I think we all, like I said with the timeline, I think we all have a tendency to wait until we feel motivated. But I just don't think that's logical. Like I think it's more like, no, you take a step and you start creating momentum or energy, and then the motivation follows. It's sort of like you just got to do it. I don't feel like running every day, but I know to get ready and the night before, and I see my runners there, so there's the visual reminder. And I think in the morning, okay, I don't feel like doing it, like that's normal, but I can just put on my runners. So I put on my runners and, put on my running clothes and just open the door. And maybe I say, I'll just take a step. And so I take that step and it's like, you know what? That kind of feels good. I'll take another one. It's not that slow, but I'll take another step and another step. And then soon I'm running and I'm like, you know what?
You've got to trick yourself like, hey, I happen to be outside in my running clothes. I guess I'm going to run.
And then you're running, but it's like, again, we're always trying to get to that feeling. Like when you're managing your schedule, you feel like you're in charge. You feel less stressed when you're doing the things that you don't want to do with some, self guidelines. You start to feel really proud of yourself and accomplished and good and confident. And I think that those are really important lessons that we have to experience. I can't tell you that that's how it's going to be. You have to experience it. And then when we succeed at things, we're even more motivated to do it again or do it differently in another area. So it's pretty exciting stuff, actually.
You do have that chain of motivation, especially with the cleaning, as you said. Like you don't want to start it, but then once you get started, you're like, okay, I can keep going. I can actually do a little bit more because, like, you're not that you're necessarily enjoying the cleaning, but you can see that you're actually getting through it, and like, oh, this isn't so bad. Like I can just,
But you do enjoy the results. Like
you enjoy the results.
Like my partner is way cleaner, but I come home and it's like it smells like lemon and everything's put away, and like it actually is huge, I think, for mental health and like for how I feel. And I'm like, I wish I was as clean as him. I'm not bad, but it's like, I know the results are huge. So that's like pretty motivating.
For the first time in a good while, I deep cleaned my oven this week. And it was something I was like, no one's going to see in there. It doesn't matter. And now I've done it and it's so sparkly. And I'm like, can people come around and look at my oven? Shall I cook for everyone? Like, look how sparkly it is.
And you're going to want to keep it clean.
Yeah.
So you're like, yes, that was 4 hours of work and it's kind of disgusting. Right. And so you're like, okay, from now on, every time something drips or, I just give it a quick wipe and it's like, it'll never get this disgusting again.
Hopefully. Well, let me ask you, what is next? What's the next book or the next project?
Oh yeah. I have a sense. So this hasn't been like, I haven't signed a contract. I haven't like even had a much of a conversation with my publicist, but I just feel like I'm like with Made from War, I almost caught up to my age, almost. So, you might hit 30s, 40s. It's still very applicable. So I'm thinking it's really important given, the upside down world that we're now living in and the fact I know a lot more now, like after writing Growing Strong Girls, I would love to go back to the beginning, almost like a prequel to Growing Strong Girls, because I'm thinking, I don't know, like call me crazy, but I'm thinking like, if we go to the very beginning from like 0 essentially to 9, and we are having conversations with girls about, listening to their bodies and like feeling all their feelings and, being brave and taking chances and being confident. Like, I'm pretty sure those very young girls are going to become stronger little girls, teenage girls, and young women. So I really want to like get ahead of it, almost like a preventative, of how to really for parents. And I think the big focus for me is going to be on stories. I think stories are so powerful and meaningful and heartfelt and scripts, because I think often, or strategies and scripts, I should say, because we need the story to understand what's happening. We need the strategies because, like we said, you need to know what to do. Don't just tell me to like raise a strong girl. And then we need the scripts. Like, what does that sound like when you're having a conversation? Which is how we teach our kids a lot of the times. We're talking. So I'm going to write that down because I like alliteration.
You're good at having these little snappy, kind of catchy pieces.
I know. It's become my thing, but I think it could also borderline annoying. But yes, I like stories, strategies, and scripts because I think that really is, they're just easy takeaways. Like it's very easy to hear and be like, oh, if I just said this to her, if I just said, your sadness makes sense. Well, now sadness in this little girl is like normal and like she owns her sadness and she's not doubting herself or trying to push the sadness down. It's just sadness, and like then she can can talk about what to do with the sadness, and then the sadness goes away, and like now we have a very healthy, emotionally healthy little girl.
Own the situation before you can work on it, I suppose.
So instead of dealing with these problems, it's like, or we could prevent a lot of problems. So.
Sure. Well, before I ask you the infamous final question, I just want to, do you want to take a few seconds real quick and like plug your website or where we can get the book or something like that?
Yeah, sure. My website is my name, lindsaysealey.com. You can also follow me on Instagram, all the socials really, but I look at Instagram the most, and that is at Bold New Girls, BoldNewGirls. Thank you.
I'll pop a link to the site and things in the show notes as well. So the last question, which we always like to ask, is if there is an existing book that you wish you'd been the person to write, what would it be?
Okay, I read a book a week, so this is like an impossible question. Really, like this has been my practice for a while, since Audible, because it makes it easier when I'm in my car. So it is impossible to choose one. Like I think I love them all. Like maybe not equally, but I always like gain tons of ideas and wisdom and practical tools. But I think the best thing to do is just to share the book I'm currently reading.
Okay.
And so it's by Dr. Becky Kennedy, and it really fits into my next project. So I'm super excited about it. And it's called Good Inside. And it's really, I think her heartfelt message is that, we're all good. As humans, we're good, and we're trying to do good things, and we're doing our best. And we're also totally screwing up, making mistakes and falling and failing. And that's okay. And so it's a very positive, I think, and empowering approach. Like, hey, like as a parent, like I know you're trying, and here are some tips and tricks really to try differently, because this might work better for you. But if it doesn't work, do this instead. Like it's just full of ideas, and I think it's really like probably the most supportive book I've read. So instead of saying like, oh, okay, like you probably messed up, or you're going to have to go back and do tons of therapy before your parenting is back on track, it's not like that. It's just like, hey, I'll meet you where you're at. And I know you're doing good. No need to feel shame or guilt or badly about anything. But from now on, you could probably do it differently or a little bit better. And like, there you go. See how that works for you.
Seems
if it
like
doesn't
a good
work,
approach.
That's okay. It's so good. And it's,
nice.
It's backed by research and her experience as a therapist. But my takeaway is just, it's very, very, very affirming. Like you're doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we need to hear, because we have so much self-doubt and so much shame, I think, that we're making mistakes or fear. Like, what if I'm screwing my child up and that's it, game over? And she just makes you feel like wherever you're at is good. And of course, we as humans, we all just want to grow and try to do a little bit better every day. Loved it. Good Inside.
Awesome. Brilliant. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for calling in and chatting to us. I love the book.
My
and as
pleasure.
I say, I'll put a link in the notes and everything like that. And take care.
Thank you so much, Ian. Okay, bye.
Awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, there we go. An unexpected call from Lindsay Sealey. We discussed her book More for More on last month's episode. So that was lovely.
Nice.
We had
two
calls this month. So go check out
great.
all of our friends and all of the authors that we discussed. PJ, I'm going to finish this month with our song, one of my new songs, Campus Quadrangle from the 2022 tapes. And if you go to booksboys.com, you can find the link to all those songs as a little treat.
I like it. Sounds
Do you
good.
want to finish with a recommendation, or have we gone long enough?
I think we've gone long enough. I just recommend, if there's one book I really recommend, it's In the Attic, which I just mentioned before. So the long list, start off with the In the Attic book to spark with the imagination.
Okay, yes. Well, there we go. Guys, I hope this episode hasn't been too long, but next month will be Christmas. It'll be a little bit shorter. I'm going to be in Spain for part of the month, so I'm going to be not reading as much. I'll be on holiday. I didn't do a lot this month, though. I did a lot of dancing, and I made some Christmas cards using got into flower pressing. But I didn't do any trips or do too much other interesting stuff. So guys, we're going to...
Once again. Next one.
Remember, you can catch us at booksboys@hotmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram at booksboyspodcast. If you want to get in touch, send us books, send us nice messages, tell us that we have nice hair. And yes. We will leave it there. Guys, I'm going to get the DJ to spin that record, Campus Quadrangle, and we'll be back in about a month.
See ya.
Autumn leaves blow by, red and orange crisp beneath my feet. Time passes me by, while others do the same as me. A few minutes ago, class finished, now I'm on my way. Got no place to go. It's the same story every day. A bench beneath a tree. I sit here and collect my thoughts. You sit across from me, holding a coffee you just bought over there on the grass. They share a kiss, eyes full of love, stuck in a boring lecture. She looks out of a window from above, and well, now here we are in the campus quadrangle. I sit here for an hour as the people come and go. Now people gather here, debating issues of philosophy, and some just rush on by. They got someplace they need to be. He comes carrying books under his arm from the library. She receives admiring looks, growing into the woman she wants to be. A place for discussion, and passers-by in a hurry too, for friends to get together, and for lonely dreamers like me and you. Wow. You get up and go. I never got the chance to talk to you. Empty coffee cup sits alone. A missed connection you never knew. Now, well, now here we are in the campus quadrangle. I sit here for an hour as the people come and go.
Books Boys was presented by The Dean and PJ Burke in association with Thaddeus Penguin Productions. This episode was brought to you by our sponsor,
The 2022 Tips.
If you would like to get in touch, you can email us at booksboys@hotmail.com or visit us at booksboys.com. The intro uses Driving in the 70s from the Of Soundtracks and Garage Bands EP by Trapdoor. And the outro uses Dog's Light by Bravo Max from the album of the same name. All music used is either podsafe or used with permission.
If you'd like to support the show, go to patreon.com/booksboys, get the show early and all of our bonus Spoof Fan the Boys shows, and you can also check out our music on Spotify or Apple Music.
Thank you kindly for listening to us. Please tell your friends, and come back next time for another episode of Books Boys. Read some books!
I ain't got anything for the blooper reel this month. God, way too long. We went way too long. But next month, Christmas, we're going to wrap it up nice and short, nice and festive. Let's do it.